Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this episode of What's Next. My name is Matthew Quinn. I'm your host of the show. And I've been really excited for this particular episode. When I found out some of the amazing things that LGBT Center in Los Angeles was doing, I'm like, I got to get them on because they are really doing some very hopeful, different from streaming things to keep theater alive in Los Angeles. So I'd like to start by bringing out my guests. Let's bring out Mr. Matt Richter. Matt, are you out there? Mr. Richter.
Hi.
The infamous TD of the LGBTQ Center. And I've known Matt for a while now here in Los Angeles. He's been a fixture, 99C Theater. You've started teching here in LA back in 2003, right?
In the early aughts.
The early aughts. And you've probably seen him if you did any theater in LA. He's worked at Sacred Fools, Theater of Note, Elephant Theater, Rogue Machine, The Echo, Theater 68. Impressive list. I think just about everyone worked with Matt Richter. He is the go-to lighting designer in Theater Row until just a couple years ago, and he got scooped up from the LGBT Center and has basically been the technical director running the magic over there. I know you've got some fun things that you've been playing with over there, and thank you so much for coming. Oh, yes.
My pleasure.
All right. Let's bring up the next guest, Mr. Jon Imparato. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
All right. Let's see. Got the... Hear you there. So, Jon, you've been the director. Yep, you sound great. You're the director of cultural arts education at LGBT Center. But prior to that, you've been an actor. You were an actor for like 25 years, and then pivoted to producing, if we can use that word pivot to describe that back then.
Yeah.
And I just looking at your resume, I mean, the vagina monologues, vanities, the normal heart, the goat, or who is Sylvia. Your big multi-award winning hit the wall. You've done shows with Alexander Billings, and then one that kind of hit close to home, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which started at your theater, you produced, and then ended up going off Broadway with the Fringe Encore series, and won that, and actually had a 6-week run, 2-month run, big run there at the Soho Playhouse.
I was so thrilled and proud of Bert Grinstead and Anna, because they're just brilliant actors and as lovely as people as they are. I've done 4 shows with Bert Grinstead, and he's one of my favorite actors in LA.
I agree. And so it's great. You've done a lot of theater, and now we're kind of in the time of COVID, and we're going to hear what you've been doing to kind of keep theater alive along with Matt and the team over there. So thank you so much for joining us. Miles, let's go ahead and bring Matt back in here. All right, the gang's all here. So I'd like to start the show off with each of you kind of talking about your pivot story, and this can be individually, it can be just as a company as a whole. But basically, we woke up January 2020. This was going to be the year to end all year. This was going to be the year, right? Everything was going to happen, all the big plans. And then mid-March, everything changed. And we've all had to kind of go through our pivot. So I'd love to hear kind of your pivot story of what that change was. What were you starting to do? And what did you end up kind of having to pivot? And then we'll talk a little bit more of that during the show.
Jon, do you mind if I start?
Well, let me start because
sure.
No, you start. Go ahead, darling.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, we were the week of the shutdown. We were scheduled to begin tech for our production of Hair, which I'm not one to brag, but it was going to be incredible, and hopefully it still will be someday. But literally, the Friday that the shutdown occurred was supposed to be the start of tech for us. So we were about as far along as we could be short of opening, so we already had a show, lined up and ready to go. So all of our sets were built. Everything was ready to go. And then the shutdown. So we were hit especially hard. Already having a production, invested in and ready to tech. So that's kind of where we were queued up at the beginning of the pandemic. John, do you want to talk about the programming that we had, set up, what we had in the before time?
Yeah.
Well, hair's been my dream production. I've wanted to do hair for. I've been the artistic director now for 26 years, and I've always wanted to do hair. And Kate Sullivan's an amazing director, and we had a phenomenal cast. And the set is the best that I've ever had in 26 years. Costumes are in, lights were hung, we were ready to go. And the day that we decided not to do it, the funny story was I was calling Michael Shepard at Celebration Theater. I was calling all my theater buddies, going, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then Shepard texted me and said, "Broadway just shut down." We went, "Oh, well, that's it. If Broadway shut down, we're out." So we all sort of went, that was our cue, because we were all just trying to keep it open. But to be honest, my cast, my choreographer, hair, they're all over each other. They're so intimate, and they were starting to feel unsafe. And so we shut it down. But we're hoping to open it up in the fall of 2021 or the spring of 2022. We're still going to do it. We're ready to go when people feel safe being in an intimate theater.
Yeah, one of the blessings for us is that we have our own space. So I know a lot of shows that were either in tech or had just opened that have had to strike, have had to clear out because they don't have their own space. They're renters, they're nomadic. So that's been one of the biggest problems for 99 Seat Theater in terms of the future. But in terms of the right now, we started having weekly meetings on Zoom as a department. And Jon put it out there and he said to the department, "Hey, if you have any wacky ideas of anything that we can do to, during the pandemic to keep doing something." And I had just read an article either on Facebook or Reddit or somewhere about a German theater company that was doing drive-through theater in a parking structure. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be interesting? Doing drive-through theater. And I started thinking, God, do I know anybody that has a parking structure? And of course, our new campus across the street has an underground parking structure. So I pitched it to Jon and I said, "Hey, here's a really crazy idea. What do you think about doing a drive-in theater?" Never thinking that we would actually do it just so I could get credit for having an idea, just so it looks like I'm actually being active during the pandemic.
Right.
And Jon, being the crazy fool that he is, said, "Let's do it." So that's
I'm
how
insane. But the thing that was also happening, Matthew. Go ahead, Matthew.
Oh, I wasn't talking.
I was going to say the thing that was happening that was so. Oh, the thing that was happening was I was already so sick of Zoom, and sick of seeing plays on Zoom and play readings, and I was just zoomed out. Early on, I was like, "This is not engaging. It's not live. I'm not into it." And I kept trying, but I would go to watch a play and bag out, and just I couldn't hold in my interest. And so when Matt said that, I then did a little more research, and during people in protest and during Nazi Germany would go into fallout shelters or empty garages and do more spoken poetry or protest stuff, than theater. But it was a way for them to do protest. And I said to Matt, let's do protest theater. Let's do this really, what's going on in the country, the destruction of Trump to America, Black Lives Matters, Trans Lives Matters, police brutality. Let's do something, and let's make it really powerful. And so then, we talked to our facilities director who was amazing, and she said, she's an African-American trans woman. She's like, "You want to hang lights, do whatever you need. I'm with you." And so Matt Richter woke up one morning and saw John Lawrence Rivera, the artistic director of Playwrights Arena, saying he was going to look for parking structures to see if he couldn't do his show. Now you take it away, Matt Richter.
So I having worked with Playwrights Arena and having obviously worked at the center, I thought to myself, oh, wouldn't this be interesting if we could just pick up his show and produce it in the garage theater? That's probably a pipe dream, but I'm gonna bring it up to Jon Imparato anyway. And so I texted John Lawrence Rivera and said, "Hey, have you considered, we have a parking garage?" And he said, "That would be great. Can I come look at it?" And I said, let me check with Jon Imparato. So I texted Jon and said, "Hey, John Lawrence Rivera has a show. Do you guys want to check it out and see if it's even feasible?" And I think by the end of that week, we had decided that it would be a co-production between Playwrights Arena and the LA LGBT Center, and it from there it just happened very quickly. I think there was a lot of pent-up interest in both creating a show. Speaking personally, in teching a show. I'm a raging workaholic, so I don't do relaxing very well. So being stuck at home, not working was, I obviously had a very keen interest in getting back to work in some capacity. And so from then on, it everything just clicked, and it was one of those things that felt like it was meant to be. It was the right show at the right time with the right people in the right space.
Yeah. Well, first of
Yeah,
all,
the funny thing was that
yeah.
the
Go
funny
ahead,
thing
Jon.
was within a half an hour, within a half an hour, we were all in the parking structure. Me, Matt Richter, and Jon Rivera, who I worked with. We did Sonnet Tears and Sea Change at my theater, written by the amazing Nick Salamone. And so I directed and worked with Jon. I've known Jon for years. But we were literally in the parking structure, and within an hour of that email, we looked at each other and we went, "Let's do it. Let's make it work." And then we started it. And the thing was, I said to Jon, I don't care what you do. I have only a few guidelines. It must be political. It must be a form of protest, and it's got to be about and it's got to be go as far as you want. We're the gay and lesbian center, the LGBT Center. Go as far as you want, and and so what he did, which was really clever, was get an outline of a play called March.
Hey, Jon.
Jon, you might be
sorry to
covering
cut
you might
off.
be covering up the mic on your phone.
Check your microphone. It's getting softer.
Oh,
There
Yep,
you are.
There you go.
any better now?
Much
Is
better.
it better
Yeah.
now, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, much.
If you want to just
Okay,
start
try to
back a little
hold this
bit
down.
early about you guys meeting in the half hour that changed the world.
So yeah, sorry guys, what I was saying was that within an hour of meeting each other, we were in the parking structure and went, "Let's do it." And we said, "Okay, let's go for it." And I said to Jon, "I don't care what you do, just it has to be political, has to be protest, and with the Los Angeles LGBT Center, go for it. Go as far as you want to go." And so he had the idea of this play, March, and actually the play he had in mind centered around two trans and a gender non-conforming person, the three leads, and police brutality and trying to make them conform to not being trans. So what we did was he gave everybody the outline of the entire play, and then we had writing sessions. So the actors and most of the trans and non-gender non-conforming people, actors, wrote the entire piece themselves. So everything you saw on stage was their own stories, their own experiences, what they deal with being a trans or gender non-conforming person in this world. So it kind of just was just meant to be. It melded.
Wow. Okay, there's so much great stuff there. I want to unpack it just a bit because, first of all, I'm loving the history of this kind of theater in the barracks and during Nazi Germany, and unfortunately, we're at a similar kind of fascist time. That you and taking a show like Hair, putting it poised, ready to do it, and then doing something very political and keeping that spirit alive. And really developing original new work in the same kind of context. And then pushing the boundaries, because I agree, I think people got kind of zoomed out. And I think everybody in LA was very nervous about in-person theater. And I remember when I saw you guys announce this, I was like, oh, this is the first taste of the next step. Like Zoom is step one, and this was like, we're starting to kind of get into the same space at least.
Well, there's two rules as far as I'm concerned about in-person performance. It has to be safe for the performers, and it has to be safe for the audience attending.
Yes.
Otherwise, it just can't happen under the current set of circumstances.
Yeah.
So that was one of the beautiful things about the drive-in model, is that the audience never leaves their car. They're separated. They're hermetically sealed inside their own cars. And the cast themselves were spaced through the choreography and the direction of Jon Rivera to be 6 feet apart from each other. So all of these things were kept in mind during the creation of the piece. There's a lot of theater that this would not work for. Anything more than a 2-person show, generally speaking, won't work. We made it work with a cast of 10 with all of these guidelines in mind. A lot of shows this was the right piece for the right set of circumstances, and for the time that we're living through. Besides the pandemic isn't the only piece of news right now, and that's one of the things that I love about the center is that they are so socially conscious and aware of what's actually going on in the world. So this piece really resonated with a lot of people. And Jon, I'm going to step on your toes here and go ahead and say that we sold out the whole run, including the extension.
And I will say this: what I'm most proud of is that to this date, we are still the only people who have produced an original piece of theater during the pandemic. People have done, monologues and different things, but as far as original theater, hello, New York Times. We tried to get an article in the New York Times that didn't go anywhere, but I think they should have done our article, quite frankly. But the other thing was I hired 2 stage managers. We have great stage managers that we work with. And one of them was hired just to be the social distancing police.
Yeah.
The other stage manager was running the board and doing what a stage manager does. The other person was just making sure. And John Lawrence Rivera had the brilliant idea from the very beginning that these soldiers, these police soldiers, always had a 6-foot pole because they didn't want to get near these trans people. They were transphobic. So the
Wow.
poles
Wow.
that they always carry, these 6-foot poles, which were their weapons, always kept the 3 leads 6 feet apart. And so that really, because people said, how do you do this? And I'm really happy to say, after a 5-week run and a 2-month rehearsal period, we were able to get out this entire pandemic with 18 people, an 8 crew and a 10 cast, with nobody getting COVID. Yeah. We would have extended, Matthew. We would have extended because we could have extended because of our sales, but we literally got out just before the epidemic started hitting really hard in LA, the surge.
I see.
Yeah, we got out just by the skin of our teeth, but we would have run another 2-3 weeks if we could have, right up to Thanksgiving. But clearly that did not happen.
Yeah, especially with the current stay-at-home order, we just couldn't encourage people to leave their houses for non-essential stuff.
No, right.
And that's where the Zoom theater kind of has the edge on in-person theater, because you can view it from your living room, obviously. So there's a give and a take in terms of current technology of what we can do. Although what we did was pretty awesome, I think.
That is pretty awesome. And I love how you worked in like almost a set choice or a directing decision with having the 6-foot pole, which, like you said, it was the perfect show at the perfect time. It just fit in so nicely.
The other thing, Matthew, was that John wanted to be the sort of utopian 2045 underground thing in an underground garage. So, and we had like a construction site where they were building a new elevator for our senior housing, and with caution tape. And he was like, no, let's keep that all there. So being in this utopian setting, it was just meant to be. But the other thing that was really cool was we opened our Liberation Cafe, which is the cafe we opened on the campus. And it's run by our seniors and youth. And we let people choose 3 different food boxes to buy, and if they wanted in their car, a charcuterie box, a snack box. And so many people did it. And so you'd pull up to the garage, to the kiosk. We'd say, hi, Matthew Quinn, here's your program. Here's your little sheet about how to, what radio to put on and how it's going to work. And here's your meal. And so, people, people said it was really an experience. And instead of applauding people, they honked their horns and flashed their lights because they weren't allowed to get out of their cars. And everybody stayed in their cars. And, if times get hard, I can now be a parking attendant at the Greek Theater, because there I was with my 2 flashlights every night, directing cars. I think I never thought I'd be doing as my job, but it was a trip. It was really something.
I have to say that the first night that I saw the curtain call with the all the cars honking and flashing their lights, it was literally one of the most emotional moments of my professional career, because after having gone so long without any kind of audience interaction at all, that kind of response at the end of the show, and it was really overwhelming, and it was worth it just for that moment for me personally, because it's all about me. Let's be honest.
That's right. and let me make it all about me for a second. My most amazing moment, probably one of them in my life, was we found out that Biden and Kamala Harris had gotten the White House on a Saturday night. So the energy that night, and I make a post speech just saying thank you and tell your friends and we're going to exit safely, this, that. But I stood there and yelled at the top of my lungs that this play was about trans lives matters, Black lives matters, police brutality, and guess what? We have a new president, a new vice president, and now it's going to matter. Now those things are going to matter to us again. And so to say that to an audience the night that they got the election, that they won the White House, it was like people were just honking their horns and opening their windows and screaming and yelling. It was such an amazing experience to say that about this play with this administration, who could give a shit about Black Lives Matters or trans matters or any human decency whatsoever, and that we got rid of the monster. Was just thrilling. It was just a thrilling thing to be able to announce that live in a garage with these amazing people. It was something.
It's so exciting to hear it, and the way you guys are telling it, and the fact that you were together, like in a space. Not many people are having that right now, as you know.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was one of the most challenging projects I've done.
Well, it sounds like a segue to me. So
I was trying to set you up.
You are I see you. You got the whole show. I'm just gonna sit back. Go ahead, man. Tell me about what's going on.
So immediately when Jon said, this sounds like garage theater, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. I immediately was confronted with the fact that I had no idea how to do it. So I almost became a dramaturg out of college. I've always been very interested in research, and I have a learning fetish. I just love learning. And so I spent a good time online and realized that the only way to do this properly was with an FM transmitter, which a lot of church groups had already bought up, because traditionally what they're marketing to is overflow crowds. So you hook it up to your soundboard, you broadcast out to the parking lot, you have more people than can be in the service, you broadcast out to them. So this has become immediately popular with a lot of church groups. As soon as the pandemic struck, they started, and I only know this because I spoke to a number of reps who are like, yeah, man, the church has bought us out. And I'm like, okay, well, let me get my name on a list and get one of these as soon as possible. And as soon as we got the unit, my coworker, Edwin, who is our amazing sound engineer, he and his brother, Dennis, are both incredible audio people. And if you ever get the chance to work with them, I highly recommend it. Edwin and Dennis Peraza, there's the shout out for them. You're welcome.
Nice.
Edwin helped me set up just to do a test in the parking garage to see if it would even work. And by virtue of the way that the parking garage is set up, since it's underground, it almost acts like a Faraday cage. So you go down into the parking garage, you lose all your signal from the outside. You can't get radio, you can't get satellite, you can't, it's even using the walkie-talkies from in the parking garage to outside is difficult. So we tested out in one area, and miraculously it was a crystal clear audio quality no matter where you drove around the parking structure. The entire building is concrete. It was bouncing the signal all over the place. No matter what we tried to do, we couldn't get it to screw up. Like it just worked. And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, maybe this is meant to be. So we filmed me doing a test that I hope never becomes public. It's singing. I did nothing. You know,
we happen to have the clip here. Jon put it in. We'll go ahead and put that up now.
So we said that to Jon and said it works. Is this something we want to pursue? And the very first in-person rehearsal that we did with the cast after rehearsing over Zoom, we just set them up with microphones. That was the very first thing we did to make sure that with that many, no, we use lavaliers.
Oh, of course.
I'm sorry. They were actually the countrymen. Yeah, so they were attached. I'm not sure. I was primarily lighting, so I'm getting the basic sound down. I believe that the mics were actually over their masks. So our wonderful costume designer, Myla Nora, who's also amazing. If you ever get the chance to work with her, she incorporated both face masks and shields into the costume design, and her work is just stunning. So they were able to mic over the masks, but under the shield, so that during costume changes, they weren't at risk of being falling off or anything. Mm-hmm. And the sound quality was shockingly good. I'm still surprised at what we were able to do. I mean, we wouldn't have put it up if it wasn't the best quality that was available, of course. But I'm still just surprised that driving down into this concrete box, we were able to make it sound that good. And it was just one of those things that the pieces just fell into place and it just worked. That's never what you want to hear from your tech guy. I don't know. It just worked. It just worked. And it worked.
I have no idea. But this is, and to clarify, you mentioned churches. This is also kind of a similar system, like if you go to a drive-in theater where you're basically hearing the signal through your radio.
Exactly. So it's an FM transmitter where the microphones and every piece of sound gear is running into the audio board, which is then spitting out to the FM transmitter. So we still had our audio technician mixing at the console, and that final product was just being broadcast through the FM transmitter, and you tuned in your car. And there's nothing like watching tech of a show from your car.
Yeah.
And a shout out, because let me tell you something. Hiring Matt Richter, the thing is, Matt always says to me, "Let me see if I can figure it out. And then he can or he can't. But when he does, he does. And the other thing I want to tell you is that we went through 2 weeks of hideous mosquitoes in the garage. We were cortisoning ourselves into a stupor. We had mosquitoes. We had that incredible, horrible heat wave. Like it was not easy. And there's AC in the garage, but it's still a garage. It stays at a certain level. You can't make the AC garage higher. It is its standard level. So it was, and these people are running around in costumes and jumpsuits and, and our tech guy, when we talked about Dennis Peraza, having to lavalier 10 actors in a garage with live sound connected to a radio. My mind was blown that we
while maintaining COVID protocols. I mean, they were sanitizing everything. They were gloved. They were masked. Everybody was top notch. And this was the garage was certainly a learning curve. The first location in the garage that we picked apparently was close to the sewage line. So we wound up moving to a different part of the garage because on extra hot days there was a little bit of a smell. So we moved to the other side of the garage, and it's just one of those things. But where we wound up worked so much better for the show, just by the layout of the actual space. It really felt like everything that happened was the way it was supposed to happen, and that is so rare, especially in small theater. We're so used to and I'm speaking outside of the LGBT Center. The LGBT Center is an absolute dream to work for. I've been there almost 8 years, and I still feel like I'm in the honeymoon phase. So I don't know if that ever wears off, but here's hoping. Here's hoping it doesn't. But I mean, you're so used to in small theater, working with whatever you're able to cobble together, and in this instance, everything that we needed to have work just worked. It was literally like this show is supposed to happen now.
I mean, you're
convincing I want to add. Go ahead, Matthew.
No, I was just saying. I just commenting that this show seems like it was meant to happen, and a brilliant bringing together of vision and tech to make it happen. Yeah. So please, John, go on.
The other thing I want to put that's really important is that in this show we hired 3 trans people and a gender nonconforming person, lots of young people of color, and trans and gender nonconforming people do not get the opportunity to have leads in plays. It doesn't happen often. And so to give these people the chance to work with Nick Salamone, who came on as a dramaturg, my friend Vera Wagner as a choreographer, me as producer, Matt, the team, John Lewis Rivera, who's an amazing director and visionary. So the fact that they got to work with this entire team, they all kept saying, oh my God, like I've grown exponentially. I know that my talent as an actor has grown. So it was really a wonderful thing to give these people this opportunity to do this. I mean, I coached one of the actors for weeks, just privately coached her to get her where she wanted to go and or where she needed to go. And so it was really something to watch, to see them transform and take their performances to a different level, because they were working with a stellar team and not having that opportunity. So that just filled my heart like I can't even begin to tell you.
That is wonderful, especially and you may I want you to maybe comment on this. In June with the murder of George Floyd, a lot of theaters were kind of called to task for not representing people of color, not representing underserviced, underpromoted groups. I feel silly asking you guys this because I know how much you do, but for you as a company, the show seemed to fit that more. But did you have talks about we need to look at what we're doing, or do you feel like we have always been very diverse, very open, very,
Yeah, I mean, when I cast Hair, I hired 2 casting directors and cast for almost a month I wanted a really young cast, to get a young cast of people who were at least 6 people of color who could sing, dance, do double harmonies, act, that kind of quality you need to do Hair. So, my commitment was we're not going to cast until we have half the cast are people of color. We're just not going to, we'll keep casting. And so, I mean, we always do diverse theater. And the funny thing about the murder of Floyd is we had a section in the play about I Can't Breathe. There was a whole I Can't Breathe section, which, it wasn't talking about George Floyd, but it was certainly talking about, the oppression and how you can't breathe when you live in a society when you're oppressed and you're afraid to walk out the door because you're a person of color and you're trans.
Yeah.
My trans brothers and sisters they're harassed getting a cup of coffee at 7-Eleven They're the bravest people I know. I mean, they walk out their door and they're being hackled and harassed, and you can imagine it, and people saying, "Fuck you, you tranny bitch. This is Trump's America." And I'm talking about getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So I wanted that oppression in the piece, and they did it beautifully.
Well, and also you mentioned not only are you giving them an opportunity and a stage, but it sounds like you also used their words. You worked with them and their stories and writing. So this was really reflecting their story at a time where those need to be told.
Yeah,
that was Jon's idea.
Yeah,
it
really.
Go ahead, Matt.
No.
Go ahead.
After you.
I would say
you guys are too polite.
They were really vulnerable, raw, private stories about their lives. I mean, these young people told their truths, and some of it was not pleasant at all. And I was like, wow, do you want to bare your soul and say that on stage every night? And they were like, yep, I'm going there. And so hats off to Coretta King, Sydney, MJ Brown, Sydney Brown, and Amir Levy, who are our three leads, because they went there.
So a couple questions, and I applaud you for giving that opportunity. And again, it sounds like, I don't know if I should applaud you. It sounds like it was just meant to be. So I don't know who you applaud when the spirits are all pushing you there, but you guys definitely had a large part of it. How did you work it with the audience in terms of, were they up on a stage? Were the characters walking around? Like, it almost seems like an immersive theater type of thing.
I'll take that one. I spent a good amount of time doing a lot of measuring and figuring out how to best socially distance the cars. Yeah. I've got a whole folder on my computer right now that's literally just drawing after drawing after drawing of the parking lot and different configurations and how can we get people here and here. Jon Rivera really wanted to use the whole space, which he always does. I mean, I love working with him. He's such an inventive director. So the cast really did utilize the whole parking garage area that we were in. And since they were wirelessly mic'd, they were heard before they were seen on stage.
Yeah.
So to back it up just a little bit, the cars were staggered so that they themselves were socially distant per the COVID guidelines at the time, which I believe was 6 feet apart from. Oh God, I've already forgotten all of the minutia. But we taped out where the cars could pull up to, and the parking attendants literally walked people in until they stopped them at the appropriate distance. All of the stalls were numbered so that we could keep track of where people were and how many cars we actually had. It was a lot of a little work, if that makes sense. To make the parking garage work for a COVID safe performance. And in terms of the audience perspective, they just pulled in and were staggered. They watched everything from their car, no risers. The actors were performing on the concrete floor of the parking garage, which again, Jon Rivera embraced the atmosphere. So it really was this dystopian nightmare world kind of already, because as Jon mentioned earlier, there was construction going on an elevator shaft, and so you were already driving into a pretty stark looking space, which made lighting it a whole lot of fun. We were able to add, basically we just put pipe clamps on the columns and brought in some pipes and bass and hung lights where we could. And the effect was actually pretty, I was really happy with the way it looked. Was weird to say about a parking garage, but it worked out. I mean, I was able to pull a lot of my own gear. I don't have any rentals right now, obviously, because there's nothing else happening. So I had a full arsenal of toys to play with. So in terms of the audience experience, they entered the parking garage, drove down to the second level, and as they pulled up into a slight ramp into our area, it all of a sudden got very dark and very different from anywhere they'd been in other places in the parking garage. So we really strove to, and I think succeeded in creating an atmosphere that existed from the second the audience entered the playing area until they left.
Yeah, and we had to build a backstage for the actors, right? We had a dressing room, backstage area. So we hung these tarps, and then I don't know if it was Patricia, somebody had the idea on these tarps. maybe it was me, I don't even remember who had the idea, but we graffitied them and wrote things like "fuck Trump," "Trump in 2045," as if Barron had become Trump. And so when you pulled up to the ramp, the first thing you saw was all this graffiti about Black Lives Matters, Trans Lives Matters, fuck Trump, all that kind of stuff. And so the moment you pulled up, when you put your radio on before the show began, there was this weird ominous music playing. So the whole vibe was like you're entering some sort of utopian post world of 2045.
And the weird thing was,
I hurt my foot, and so I'm now lying in my bed with my foot elevated. So if I look weird, I'm in my bed. Just so you know.
That's the kind of producer that Jon is. Even injured, he still shows up for you.
He's here. He's still here.
I say that sounds like I'm trying to make a joke, but I'm sincere when I say Jon's one of the best producers I've ever worked with. And that's not just because he's my boss and I'm appearing on a show with him right now. Like, I'm actually having a lot of fun with him right now because that's what we do. We really enjoy working together, and it's just anyway.
I feel that. I love how it is the shared of a vision, Jon's openness and exploring, and you, Matt, being the techie that you are, making this happen. I'm excited just hearing you guys talk about it.
Well, you know, Matthew, I was out of ideas. I had nothing. My well was dry. I was so sick of Zoom, and I had nothing. And I said, hey, guys, I'm going to challenge you. Anything you can think of, throw anything at me. What can we do besides Zoom? Because I want to do something else. I don't want to do Zoom. And I literally, you know, I'm a pretty good idea guy. I have lots of ideas. My brain never stops. But I had nothing. And to be honest with all of you, when we started the Garage Theater, I was a little depressed. And I was like, ugh, I'm in a frigging garage, and you know, I want to be in my theater. And what is this? And you know, and I was sort of just, you know, being the Italian martyr I can be, and you know, just bemoaning the whole thing. You know, like good Jewish people, we love to kvetch. And yeah. And then like about 2 weeks into it, when we really got in the garage, we were rehearsing initially in the gallery, in our big gallery space, we were rehearsing. And then Jon was like, we got to get in the theater. We just have to, because it's too hard to do without blocking. When we got in the theater and I saw it coming alive, I was like, oh my God, we're going to pull this off. It's going to happen. And then I was like, okay, I see what's happening, and like, let's make this as great an experience for the actors as well as for the crew and for the audience. You know,
what was the timeline for this? What was because you mentioned this about like how you mentioned all these things happening. How did this kind of timeline from mid-March to your opening? Like how long?
2 months of rehearsal. 4 weeks of that was really was a writing. Am I right about this, Matt? 4 weeks was a writing process, writing the script.
Yeah, I think it wound up being 15 Zoom rehearsals, meeting once or twice a week. I think that
twice a week, yeah.
And that was all done over Zoom, so that was already socially distant. Well, let's back it up even before that. Auditions were done online. People submitted monologues.
When was that? What month was that approximately? When did that start?
August,
I think. Yeah. Late July or August.
Okay. Yeah. We had just come off of. Yeah, we had just come off of Trans Pride, which was in June. Oh, we took our Trans Pride online this year. We normally have a big festival where we shut down the whole center and turn it into a big festival and celebration. So in June, we did take one of our big events online.
So was that a Zoom? Was that?
No, it was done. It was how did they do it? It involved other departments. Our head of IT had a friend whose company broadcast live productions, and this lovely gentleman volunteered to do it for us pro bono. So I got to get all of the performers. I do a show. Trans Pride's a 2-day festival that ends with a thing called the Variety Show. Get the T in Variety. And I come up with this idea, and I've been directing this and producing it for 6-7 years. And so we got everyone to come into the theater with social distancing. They had their own microphone. They came in, they shot their thing. Matt lit it. It looked beautiful. And then they left. And so we were able to do 7 live performers and show 5 videos of past performers, because we videoed the shows. And we made a fundraiser. So we would cut back and forth. It was sort of fun going, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go live. And you do the fundraising pitch. And then we go back to the show. and it was pretty. It was really cool, and we had about 1,700 people watch it. And we had people watching from Jerusalem, from Spain, from all over the country, because people who would never come to LA for Trans Pride were watching it.
That's the one biggest plus for Zoom or Zoom performance, as far as I'm concerned, is that it gives you not only the accessibility that you don't have with live theater, but the reach that you're limited to.
Yeah.
That being said, we sold out every show. I will remind you again at the Garage Theater. But the Zoom model has really helped some of our support groups. I know that that we now have people from across the world joining us in those groups. So I think that the Zoom model is something that's going to be integrated into aspects of the cultural arts and education department moving forward post-pandemic. And I think that's definitely something that's worth stressing, is that this is opening up one of the biggest silver linings is that it's opening up access for people who wouldn't have had access to us otherwise, to our services at the center.
I was just told today that Gina Bigham, who runs our Trans Lounge program, she's amazing, that in
Gina's
a group
great.
Last night, they had somebody from Malaysia join. So we've now understood that all of our social networking groups, we have 8 social networking groups at our Trans Lounge groups. We're going to have to do some of them on via Zoom when the pandemic's over, because we're reaching people who they're either homebound or they're in countries where they have no access to anything about LGBT.
So you plan on continuing, and Matt, you hinted at that. Those kind of connections will continue, it sounds, in the better times, the future times. What about the drive-in theater? What are the kind of unique benefits you got from that? And is there any chance of that will continue, or is that very much a stopgap to today?
I think it will continue in the new year. Because I don't foresee small theater in Los Angeles reopening until the end of next year.
Yeah.
It really depends on how things go with the vaccine. It really depends on how that rollout happens. I feel like there is a demand for the drive-in model. And as long as there's a demand and we are physically and procedurally able to make that happen, I think we will. The numbers for COVID are so bad right now that we can't even consider anything. People need to stay at home at full stop. And for the safety of everyone involved, that's just how it's got to be for right now. I don't think that's going to continue. I'm very hopeful that in the new year, as the vaccine is rolled out, the drive-in theater model could be something to tide people over until later in the year when we're all able to congregate safely, I think.
Whoops, I can't hear you.
And can you hear me now?
You're back.
We have several things that I'd like to do. I don't want to say what they are yet, but I've got several things that would be at least 2 to 3 months of programming in the garage if we can get back into it. And the other thing is, we have this gorgeous, amazing courtyard that's just it's magical. And if I can get 50 people in there, and we've done outdoor performances there. We've got power. We've got all that. Matt, of course, could put up a grid and light stuff. So,
I could light that.
I was going to do an outdoor, music festival, an outdoor comedy series. I was going to do those kind of things in the courtyard. They could possibly happen, or we'll be back in the garage. But once it feels safe, we'll do one or the other until I can open hair and we can actually be in the theater.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with the LGBT Center specifically, if you're at all affiliated with Fringe, the courtyard that John's referring to is the courtyard where we've held the opening festivities for the Fringe Festival the last 3 years, I think.
Yeah, I think that's about
so.
Right.
You probably know our courtyard without realizing you know our courtyard. Those are the busiest events that we have in the courtyard, and we're really happy that Fringe has worked with us in the past. And hopefully one day that'll come back too.
Yeah. And I have to say, it is echoing what John said. It is magical in there, and it heightened the Fringe. And I gotta say, what a wonderful place to do a show. Oh my, that just, I mean.
I wanted a summer outdoor concert series under the stars, music under the stars, comedy under the stars.
Yeah.
But it I was going to do them in July and August, but we ended up being in the garage. It didn't happen. But if things get safer, and the only problem with that's going to be You know, if you want to buy if I have 50 seats or 40 seats in the courtyard, it's going to be, you don't get to sit with your partner. Like, I can't
Right.
figure out, you're a pot of four, you're a pot of three. It's like, you've got your seat, you take it. That's how it works. Because they need to be socially distanced, and people have to take your temperature and wear the masks and all that. If we go back, it's got to be, take your seat, and that's how it's
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah.
I
think that more people are starting to understand that.
Yeah.
When we very first shut down, I think everybody kind of universally thought, oh, we'll be back open in a month. We're gonna stay at home for 3 to 5 weeks, and then we'll slowly get back to it. So the fact that it's gone on as long as it has, with so much confusion and so many different orders, I think that we all kind of have an air of skepticism now in terms of, is this thing really going to happen? Should I plan ahead?
Yeah.
So I'm finally at the point myself where I feel comfortable saying, okay, I think that we're really going to be doing something come late summer, early autumn. I really feel like we're headed in that direction. And if we can't, we can still do the drive-in theater. So I think that having these options that we've created that actually work, that people enjoy, that we are able to present safely, that's about all that we can do. So I feel like as long as we're doing that, then we're moving somewhere.
And if there's a silver lining, Matthew, I feel like because the pandemic got so bad and the spike has been horrible, I feel like if I do courtyard theater, people will be much more apt and respectable to social distancing, because I think people are now really understanding the severity of this pandemic.
I agree.
Yeah.
So do you see, if when we pass the surge, the stay-at-home kind of leaves in a few weeks, do you see then kind of starting back up either with your own shows, or I recall you asking if other companies were interested in performing in a drive-in scenario? Do you see that starting up maybe in January, February? I mean, obviously we can't say, but once the surge kind of passes, is that what you're looking for?
Hopefully February. That's my goal, is February.
That's
I feel
your
like
goal, February.
even if the holiday, we need to have January go by. We need another month of just people calming down and understanding what's going on. So hopefully I will resume something in February. That's the goal. Yes.
Yeah, because keep in mind, if there is a surge over Christmas, we're not going to know until mid-January.
Yep.
Right.
And we've got to wait till January 20th. That's going to be a big catch day for people feeling good about things.
Is there something happening? Is there what's going on?
It's like there's a new record coming out. It's going to be great. What about?
I will be weeping like an old Italian woman. I'll be crying my eyes out just to see the two of them. I'll be pounding the floor like someone died. It will be embarrassing. I will be,
So are you going to let other groups come in? I know you had mentioned that it was kind of or maybe a Fringe. If Fringe comes back and opens in kind of a physical distance, are you keeping it kind of your production so you can keep safety measures? Like, how are you viewing that?
Yeah, the safety measures are definitely the most important. The safety measures are definitely the most important thing. It's really, I think it's all going to be dictated by what happens with the caseload moving forward. Like Jon said earlier, we got out with that skin of our teeth, in terms of closing, and we could have kept going. But we kind of had to close. And I think I speak for everybody when I say I don't want to put us in this position where we're trying to open something and we're forced to postpone or cancel due to the fact that people were careless over the holidays, or that there's another surge. So we have this model in place when it's safe to pursue it again. Is the best I think we can do.
The other thing I can say about that,
please.
The other thing I can say about that, Matthew, is this: it's all a matter of what would work in the theater. A cast of 10 brings a lot of people in. They've got 10 people, have 10 friends and family, but I'll never do another show with a cast that large. It was too much. It was just too big of a cast.
I can't believe how big
I
that
won't
is.
do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think one person shows work. So it's really finding the right material that will work. That's the tricky thing. So, like someone submitted a play to me. It's a 2-character play about, sitting on a park bench and talking about, different things. And it might be a lovely piece of theater, but it would fall flat in that garage. It's because it's got to be engaging. And the thing about the play we did was the soldiers came out and scared the crap out of you. They came out of nowhere and just jumped through the cars, and people, like, you could hear people go, and, oh my God. And and there was music, and there was choreography, and there was the march. So it was active, and in a 45-minute show, things were happening.
Yeah.
Not just talking heads. So we got to find the right material that's not just talking heads.
Yeah, this is a unique. All these people are saying that with Zoom too. Finding not everything can be Zoom. Not everything can be theater in the round. Finding
Exactly.
the right show. Just something that popped in my head. Was there a problem with the exhaust from the car?
No, our setup actually has a CO2 monitoring system built in, or a CO monitoring, whatever it is. It complies to all the standards of new construction. So it's actually kind of funny how it timed out. After most shows, the exhaust would kick on. It was never an issue. We have filtration. And for most people, they didn't have to do it with their cars on. One thing on older cars, and this was the problem that I ran into, in older cars, you just put your ignition into a utility mode, like when you're a teenager and you were out driving with your friends and you'd want to listen to the radio, but not drive somewhere. You park, put it in utility mode and listen to radio. On all the newer cars, there's no such thing anymore.
No such thing.
And we also learned the hard way that jump starting a hybrid is it's like learning rocket science. It's like rocket surgery. It's literally like I'm so thankful that I didn't have to deal with it, but it's crazy. Also, having a portable jump starter is a great idea for a parking garage theater.
Well, there's no doubt. John, please.
But at least 5 or 6 times we had to jump start a car after the show. At least 5 or 6 times, not every night. I mean, during the run, at least 5 to 6 cars, maybe more, maybe like 8 cars during the run. We'd have to jump start them, which took 5 minutes, but everyone was so cool about it. But it was sort of like, I would say you need to exit, and they're like, no, the car's not starting. We're like, hold on, we got you covered. We had to figure this out for you. We'll get you going. And they're like, really? We don't have to call AAA. Don't call AAA. We got you.
It's great, John, because it reminds me too of what you said earlier about learning new skills of parking attendants. One of the things that everybody's talking about is how we are learning new skills. Everyone in the arts is being forced to survive to learn these skills, which is kind of fun. Which has been kind of fun, right?
Yeah, and kind of challenging, and I mean, we all want to go back in our theaters and do our shows, but it's like, okay, so if that's not happening, what are our options? A lot of our theater buddies came to see the show. A lot of Boston Court, Celebration, Skylight, lots of our theater buddies came to see the show. And, and I've said to all of them, if you want to do it, call me, because we'll tell you what we did wrong. We'll tell you our mistakes. But we were the pioneers here, and, and through trial and error, we're all in this together. We're all theater buddies. We'll tell you what worked and what didn't work.
I'm happy to design the system for you. I'll even do it for
you. Heard it here. Take him up on it.
I'm dead serious. If there's anything I can do to help get the arts going again in Los Angeles in whatever capacity, I'm thrilled to do so. The Los Angeles theater literally is my life. So anything I can do to help take it off life support and get it, walking and running, it's to my own benefit to do so.
Yeah. Anybody watching your show, Matthew, that is thinking, I want to try that, they can feel free to contact me, and I will talk them through everything we did, or any of the things to avoid, things that will work and didn't work,
Well, I will definitely pass that on. One of the things that you're hitting, the perks or the silver linings has been this communication. I know, like the theaters, many of the 99 and plus theaters are meeting every Tuesday, sharing ideas. Fringe venues have all been talking, and internationally. I mean, I think there are companies across the pond, all over the world, that are looking at all this. And I've had fun kind of connecting with these different people, asking questions, sharing knowledge. It's what theater people do. So I that's a great offer. And I'm hoping there's more of people doing. Did you guys see today, Fountain Theater just announced that they're going to start doing theater in their garage, in their parking lot.
Yeah.
You may have known
buddies of ours.
Yeah, you probably would know more of that. Yeah.
They came to the show, so great. And let me give a shout out. If always I've been in LA, The theater who I love the most is the Fountain Theater. They do great work. They do really, really great work. I've never been disappointed. And, you know, anything that Simon or, why am I drawing? I'm drawing blanks on names. I'm a little medicated.
Simon and Stephen.
And Stephen, yeah, you know, I'm happy to help in any way I can because I'm a big fan of theirs, and they know that.
The theater love. In times of trouble, bring it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other thing to toss out there before I'm hearing kind of what next. Would you consider, because I'm sitting here, I wasn't able to get out. Did you do a tape of this? Is there a hybrid version of the show where you could stream it, where people can see it, or are you really keeping it to this kind of physical form?
We taped it. We did a 3-camera shoot.
Wow!
I just got the copy of it yesterday. I'm using a little piece of it for our Trans Lounge holiday party, where they're doing a song by Sia called "Unstoppable." I'm going to look at the whole thing, and that's my next decision. You know, I've got to figure out what that means. I mean, they were all non-equity actors, so can I stream this and not pay the actors, or I don't know. I've never done this before, so it's all new territory. But you know, it's you know, it's all you know a learning curve. But we do have it looks great. The 3-camera shoot was wonderful, and that was done by Playwrights Arena. They took our publicity photos and shot it for us at no cost, which was wonderful of them. So we've got a great version of it. So we might put it on our website. I'm going to talk to Jon Imparato about that tomorrow, actually. So there you go.
Well, let me know. I would love to see it.
Sure.
And it sounds wonderful. And I've got to say, for a company, every time you've been saying we didn't know what we were doing, we're just going. It is very impressive talking to you today to hear how you started with you've been doing the Zoom kind of meetings with things, and then having the show in June that you actually kind of streamed shows from a theater, which not many people were starting in June that early, to developing a full physical theater in a city that is still locked down, doing it safely. I remember there was that production of Hair that went up somewhere else that they tried to get everybody on stage, and they had some issues there. You guys were very responsible. And I really can't wait for Hair to come back out when you guys are ready at a time. That'll be a real celebratory piece, I imagine, my God, when that comes back, which will be really exciting. And really just, I guess before my little wrap up with this, what else are you guys, what's down the line? I mean, is there other plans? You talked a little bit about it, but is there a definitive what's next, say after February? Is it?
Hopefully not a cast of 10.
Yeah. It all remains to be seen. There's an interesting project happening, a musical about the play Arena, about the club Arena. They're writing a musical about it. A lot of people from Casa 101, and we're talking about the opportunity to do something with them in late April, and that could be in the courtyard, the garage theater. But we're going to be involved in that, and it sounds like a really interesting project. So that could happen down the line. We're really hoping. It all depends on what happens with the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but I would love to open Hair in the fall. That would, in October, November. Yes. Because the funny thing about it is why I chose Hair is something that I love the show and love the score, is that it is more timely than ever. They're talking about police brutality, about gender identity, about pollution, about the war, about totalitarianism. Like it's you watch that show and you go, my God, it's so freaking timely. And we're going to put our spin on it. And like I said, Kate Sullivan's a wonderful director who's got great vision for it. So I think when we come back, that show will speak even more after the pandemic than it did before the pandemic.
I agree.
Hopefully.
And I agree with that. And I also agree, I think fall is a good call. You had mentioned that your kind of milestone event was Broadway closing. And as you probably read, fall is kind of when Dr. Fauci is kind of saying that's when he thinks Broadway is going to be able to reopen. So hopefully that will be a calendar we can all follow. Obviously with the vaccine waiting with that. Well, I've got to say we're at the top of the hour, so I just want to say thank you both, not only for doing this show. It's been wonderful hearing your adventures. There's probably several hours more of adventures, but also a big thanks for what you are doing for LA Theater, because the show has been trying to bring people in to show the hope that there are people doing theater, and you guys are an example, the company you guys represent, of keeping art alive. And it's exciting for me to hear. I'm sure it will be exciting for people as they watch this, and that you're willing to share that information. So I will for sure pass that on. So thank you. Any final things?
Thank you. No, thank you for inviting us, and thank you for keeping people aware of LA theater. I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you so much, Matthew. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
What Jon said.
Well, there is some. I try to do some international and national stuff. There's some really good stuff coming out of LA, and people are really kind of coming together. So, all right. Well, thank you again, audience. Thank you so much for coming to this week's episode of What's Next.
Wait, there was an audience?
There was an answer. We just
hi.
go. Next week will be our last show of the year, and we're bringing back two critics who, between them, R&D, between them, they have seen over 100 streaming shows, and they are going to talk about the good and bad and ugly of the live streaming experience. So I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for more physical distance theater. Thank you, everyone. Jon, Matt, thanks again. Miles, let's roll the credits.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience, for coming on.